The ocean breeze didn't sting as much as the sight before her. Sewa stood barefoot in the sand, hidden by palm leaves, watching the man who once promised her forever. Ziki was twirling another woman in the surf. They laughed, toasted wine, and called the place their paradise. Sewa clutched the pendant on her neck, the one carved from the island's very wood. Because the island wasn't theirs, it was hers. And tonight, they would find out. Sewa and Ziki had been through everything together. When they had no money, they still smiled. When life was hard, they held each other tighter. Sewa believed that love and hard work would take them far. She spent her days making handmade soaps from natural oils, dreaming of turning her small hustle into something big. Ziki was always by her side, until he wasn't. One quiet morning, Sewa woke up to find a note beside her tray of soaps. Ziki was gone. No goodbye, no explanation. Just a piece of paper that read, "I need more than dreams, Sewa. I'm not built for simple." Her hands shook as she read it again and again. It felt like her heart had been ripped out. Days passed like years. She waited, hoping maybe he'd call, maybe he'd explain. But then, one afternoon, her friend showed her something on her phone. It was Ziki, smiling, laughing, holding hands with another woman on a luxury yacht. The caption said, "Power couple goals." He was engaged to Lara, a billionaire's daughter. The same Ziki who once said he didn't care about money was now living in gold and silk. And just like that, the man who once said he couldn't live without her had replaced her with someone rich. Sewa stared at the screen in silence. No tears, just silence. It was like her whole world shifted in one moment. The man who left her for being too simple was now flaunting a new life, pretending their love never mattered. But what he didn't know was, this was not the end of Sewa's story, not even close. After Ziki left, Sewa felt broken, but she didn't stop. She wiped her tears and went back to doing what she knew best, making her soaps. She poured her pain into her work, spending long nights mixing oils, wrapping packages, and writing tiny notes with love in each box. These weren't just soaps anymore, they were pieces of her healing. What many didn't know was that Sewa's grandfather had left her something precious, a small island, quiet and untouched, filled with rare plants and oils that weren't found anywhere else. While others saw it as just land, Sewa saw a gift. She began using the oils from that island in her products, and soon her soaps started standing out. They were different, pure, natural, and full of magic. But Sewa never told anyone where her ingredients came from. She kept the island a secret. She didn't post about it online. She didn't even tell her closest friends. While some people were busy showing off their fake lives on social media, Sewa was building something real, quietly. She found a foreign distributor who believed in her work. They started buying her products in bulk and selling them overseas under a different name. Nobody knew Sewa was behind it. No one guessed that the girl who used to sell soap at the corner market was now making deals in dollars. As the money came in, Sewa didn't change. She didn't buy flashy clothes or post expensive shoes. Instead, she reinvested every coin into growing her business. She trained women from nearby villages, gave them jobs, and slowly turned her small dream into a big reality. While Ziki was posting photos in big hotels and dancing at parties with Lara, Sewa was watching her bank account grow quietly. Every month, it got better. Every month, she felt stronger. And still, no one knew. No one knew the owner behind the brand. No one knew the island was hers. She didn't need the spotlight. She didn't need applause. Her peace was enough. Her progress was private. But deep down, she knew the day would come. The day her silence would speak louder than all their noise. Because sometimes, the loudest success is the one that doesn't need to shout. Weeks had passed, and Sewa was busy running her growing business quietly. Her days were full, but her heart still carried pieces of the pain Ziki left behind. She didn't look for him. She didn't search for updates. But life has a way of showing you what you're not even looking for. One evening, while scrolling through her phone, a post popped up. It was trending. There was Ziki, standing shirtless on a beach, smiling, holding hands with Lara. The caption said, "Couple goals in a newly discovered private paradise." More pictures followed. Clear blue skies, palm trees swaying, red-colored sand, a huge mango tree behind them. Sewa's heart skipped a beat. She stared at the photos in shock. This wasn't just any island. She knew that mango tree. It was the same one she used to climb as a child. She remembered its twisted roots and the way the coconuts hung nearby, like little lanterns. The sand wasn't just red. It had a soft glow to it, something she had only seen on her family's land. That wasn't a new island. That was hers. The same island her grandfather had left her, the same land where her oils came from, the same place she had protected, loved, and kept quiet. But now, it had a new name, a fake name. Some luxury resort had changed it for branding. They wanted it to sound foreign and rare, but nothing could hide what it truly was. It was Tamira, her island, and Ziki and Lara were walking around like they discovered it, laughing in her mango grove, kissing under her palm tree, taking pictures in front of her wave. Siwa didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just sat there, looking at the screen, breathing slowly. It wasn't anger she felt. It was something deeper, a mix of disbelief and calm fire. The boy who left her for being too simple was now enjoying a paradise she had built quietly, and he didn't even know it. They thought they had found something new, but all they had done was walk into her world without even realizing it. The very land beneath their feet belonged to the girl Ziki once walked away from, and Sewa knew this wasn't a coincidence. Life was giving her a front row seat, and soon they would both find out exactly whose island it really was. Sewa didn't rush. She didn't post anything. She didn't even tell her friends what she was about to do. Quietly, using a different name, she booked a trip to the most expensive villa on the island, her island, the same one Ziki and Lara were now showing off as their secret getaway. The booking was done through one of her managers. No one suspected a thing. To the outside world, she was just another rich guest coming to relax. She arrived before sunrise. The air was still, and the sky was soft pink. Her private boat pulled up quietly to the shore. She stepped onto the sand, wearing simple clothes, no makeup, no noise, but her presence was powerful. The island knew her. The trees, the breeze, the ocean, they all welcomed her back, and so did the staff. Each person she passed gave her a slight bow or a knowing smile. Behind closed doors, they called her Madam Sewa, the true owner. These were not strangers. These were the very people she had trained, hired, and trusted. While others saw them as hotel workers, Sewa saw them as her team. They respected her deeply, and she didn't have to say a word. From a distance, she could see Ziki and Lara already enjoying the beach. Ziki wore a loose white shirt and sunglasses, acting like a king. Lara was snapping selfies, giving orders, and laughing loudly. They looked happy, but Sewa could see it. The performance. It was all for show. She stood quietly behind a cluster of palm trees, watching the man who once left her chase a life that wasn't truly his. He walked like he owned the place. He spoke like he built it, but everything he touched that day belonged to her. The sand beneath his feet, the bed they slept in, the fruit they ate, all of it came from Sewa's world. She didn't approach them. She didn't need to. Instead, she walked to her villa where her personal staff waited with open arms. They welcomed her with warmth, offering her fresh juice, her favorite meal, and calm smiles. She felt at peace. This wasn't revenge. It was something sweeter, quiet power. Ziki had once said she was too simple. Now he was vacationing in the very world her simple hands had built, and he had no idea. Not yet. But the time was coming, and Sewa would be ready, not with anger, but with the truth. At first, everything looked perfect. Ziki and Lara walked around the island smiling for photos, laughing by the beach, and enjoying the attention, but it didn't take long before the cracks started to show. Lara, who acted sweet online, began to reveal her real attitude. She wasn't kind, she wasn't grateful, she was just demanding. She started complaining about everything. She asked why the sand wasn't more golden like the ones she had seen in magazines. She looked around and said, "This place is nice, but where's the real luxury?" She didn't care about the natural beauty of the island. She wanted malls, loud music, big shopping centers, things that didn't belong in a peaceful place like this. The staff, trained to always stay calm, did their best to meet her needs. But it wasn't enough. Lara talked down to them, called them lazy, and rolled her eyes every time they brought her something. She even asked one staff member if they had ever traveled outside the island, saying, "You people need to see real cities." The same people who were secretly working under Sewa's guidance were now being treated badly by a guest who didn't even know whose island she was standing on. Ziki tried to keep up with her mood swings. He brought her fresh juice, planned private dinners, and took her on boat rides. But even he was getting tired. It was clear on his face. Every time she whined or threw a fit, he forced a smile. But deep inside, he wasn't happy. He had chased this rich lifestyle for comfort, for luxury, but he didn't expect it to come with so much noise. Lara wasn't the partner he needed. She was the partner he chose for money and status. But now, as she tossed another plate aside because the fish wasn't fancy enough, Ziki started to look different. He didn't laugh as much. He didn't hold her hand the same way. And every time he passed one of the quiet staff members, it was like he felt something, a feeling he couldn't explain, a memory, maybe. The illusion of paradise was breaking. What was supposed to be a romantic escape was turning into a show of fake love and shallow wants. And while they both acted like everything was fine, someone else was watching from a distance, the real queen of the island. Sewa didn't need to lift a finger. Lara was destroying the picture all by herself. And Ziki, he was starting to realize that sometimes, when you chase gold, you lose the real treasure. The resort was glowing that night. The staff had prepared a beautiful guest gala by the beach. Candles lit the paths. Soft music filled the air, and the waves clapped gently in the background. Everyone was dressed their best. It was the kind of night made for memories. Ziki and Lara arrived early, both smiling, acting like the perfect couple. Lara wore a bright red dress and made sure every camera caught her from the right angle. Ziki held her hand, but his eyes looked tired. Then, something happened that shifted the whole mood. A woman stepped into the scene, quiet but powerful. She wore a simple silk emerald wrap that flowed with every step. Her hair was pulled back, her skin glowing under the lights. She didn't walk fast. She didn't try to grab attention, but somehow, everyone noticed her. Even Lara glanced at her but didn't recognize her. She just rolled her eyes and looked away. But Ziki froze. He was mid-sip when he saw her. His hand stopped, the glass trembling slightly. His eyes widened. It was Sewa, but not the Sewa he remembered. This woman looked stronger, sharper, more graceful than ever before. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. For a moment, he forgot where he was. His eyes followed her every move. Sewa didn't look at him. She didn't look at Lara. She simply walked up to the host and handed over a gold invitation with her initials on it. No one questioned her. The host immediately smiled, bowed slightly, and guided her to the VIP table, the table reserved for the owner. Not just a special guest, the owner. The whispers started around the room. Who is she? She must be someone important. Did you see her invite? But Sewa sat down calmly, her face unreadable. She didn't need to say anything. Her presence said it all. From across the room, Ziki couldn't take his eyes off her. Lara noticed and asked, "Do you know her?" Ziki shook his head slowly, but inside, his heart was racing. It wasn't just surprise, it was regret. That dinner changed everything. Not because Sewa said something, but because she didn't. Her silence was louder than any words. And for the first time, Ziki began to understand. He wasn't the star of this story anymore. The girl he once walked away from had just entered the room, not as a memory, but as a queen. Rain started falling suddenly that night. A strong wind blew in from the ocean, and guests were quickly moved inside the main hall. The beach gala turned into an indoor gathering, but no one seemed to mind. The room was warm, the lights were soft, and laughter filled the air. But then came a loud clap of thunder, and the power flickered. For a few seconds, everything went dark. Gasps were heard. Then the backup lights came on, glowing dim, but golden. The estate manager stepped forward, tapping his glass gently. The room slowly quieted down. Everyone turned their attention to him as he lifted his drink. His voice was calm, but full of emotion. "Tonight is not just about food, music, and the beauty of this island," he said. "It's about honoring the one person who made all of this possible, someone who never asked for attention, who stayed silent while building something powerful." People looked around, confused. Some whispered, wondering who he was talking about. Even Ziki leaned forward, curious. The manager smiled and slowly turned toward one table. "To the woman who built paradise from pain, Ms. Sewa Temi." Gasps echoed through the hall. All eyes turned to Sewa. Ziki dropped his glass. It shattered on the floor. He stood still, eyes wide, like he'd just seen a ghost. Lara's mouth fell open. She looked between Sewa and the manager, completely confused. "Wait, her!" she whispered, barely able to say it. Sewa didn't flinch. She didn't stand. She didn't wave. She just nodded slightly, a calm smile on her lips. The kind of smile that says, "I don't need to shout to be seen." The manager continued talking, But Ziki couldn't hear anything anymore. His mind was spinning. Sewa owns this. The girl he once said was too simple was the very reason this island existed as a luxury paradise. The sand they walked on, the meals they enjoyed, the villa they stayed in, all of it was hers. Not Lara's, not his. Sewa's. Lara looked like she had swallowed seawater. She turned pale, her pride shrinking by the second. Her fancy words, her loud complaints, all of them meant nothing now. She had disrespected the very person who gave her this experience. The storm outside roared louder, but the real storm was inside, in Ziki's heart, in Lara's eyes, and in the silence that now surrounded Sewa, a silence filled with power. And in that one moment, everything changed. Not because Sewa raised her voice, but because the truth finally stood tall, and the world had no choice but to listen. The moment the truth came out, Lara's smile disappeared. Her eyes darted around the room, trying to understand what had just happened. People were still whispering, some looking at her with hidden smirk. She felt embarrassed, small, and completely caught off guard. Without wasting a second, she grabbed Ziki's arm and pulled him aside, her voice low but sharp. "Why didn't you tell me she owned this place?" Lara hissed. Ziki looked just as shocked. He shook his head, his mouth slightly open. I didn't know," he said honestly. "I had no idea." Lara rolled her eyes, clearly angry. "Do you know how foolish I must look right now? I've been complaining about this island, her island. I insulted her staff. I demanded changes, and she was here, watching it all." Ziki had no answer. His heart was racing, not just because of Lara's panic, but because of what he now realized. Everything started making sense. The way the staff respected her, the way she carried herself, and why the manager called her the woman who built the island from pain. That pain was from him. While Lara stormed off to hide her embarrassment, Ziki took a deep breath and walked slowly towards Sewa. She was still sitting quietly at the owner's table, her hands folded on her lap, calm and composed. "Sewa," he said softly. She looked at him, not cold, not angry, just still. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I'm sorry, truly. I didn't know you'd come this far." He was nervous, stammering, searching for the right words. He thought maybe if he showed some regret, Sewa might feel something, but her eyes stayed steady. And then she spoke. "I didn't build this to prove a point," she said gently. "I built it because you left me with no place to cry." Ziki felt like the ground under him disappeared. That one sentence hit harder than anything else. She didn't become successful out of anger. She didn't grow to show off. She simply created a space to heal, a place to stand when she had no one left to lean on. He had walked away from her because he thought she was too simple, but now he could see there was nothing simple about her. She had strength in her silence, grace in her growth, and standing there, with nothing to say, Ziki realized he hadn't just lost a woman, he had lost a whole world. The morning after the big reveal, the air on the island felt different. It was quiet, but not in a peaceful way, more like the silence after a storm. Sewa sat by the window in her villa, watching the sun rise over the ocean. She had thought long about what to do next, and now she was ready to make her final move, not out of anger, but out of peace. She sent a message through the estate manager to Ziki and Lara, a polite note, nothing harsh. It simply said that their stay had been fully refunded, every penny. They didn't owe the resort anything, but along with that refund came a request. They were kindly asked to leave the island by the afternoon. Lara was furious. "What? She's kicking us out," she shouted. "I don't care if she owns it. We paid to be here." But Ziki said nothing. Deep down, he knew they didn't belong there anymore. This place, this island, it wasn't theirs. It never was. They packed their things quickly, avoiding the staff's eyes. No more selfies, no more fake smiles, just silence, heavy and uncomfortable. As they reached the dock, a staff member walked over and handed them a rolled-up paper. It was a simple island map, but this one was different. At the top, written in soft gold letters, was the island's real name, Tamira. Lara looked confused. "Tamira? What's that?" Ziki stared at it for a moment. Then he whispered, almost to himself, "Temi's realm." He remembered now. Temi was Sewa's middle name. Everything finally made sense. The island wasn't just a place. It was a part of Sewa, a reflection of her soul. The name wasn't made for tourists or fame. It was a quiet reminder of her journey, her pain, her strength. Zeke looked back one last time as the boat pulled away. He saw Sewa standing far in the distance, dressed in white, calm as ever. She wasn't waving, she wasn't smiling, she was simply watching, like someone who had already moved on. No shouting, no drama, just one final act of quiet power. Sewa didn't take revenge. She gave them a refund, a gentle goodbye, and a truth they'd never forget. And as their boat left the shore, Zeke knew this was no ordinary island. It was a kingdom, and he had just been kindly shown the exit. Months passed, and the island bloomed even brighter. What once held quiet pain now stood tall with purpose. Tamira was no longer just a hidden gem. It had become a symbol of strength, healing, and quiet success. Sewa continued growing her business, expanding her team, and helping women from nearby communities learn the skills she once taught herself. But she didn't stop there. One day, she hosted a summit, a special event for young African entrepreneurs. They came from different places, full of dreams and ideas, many of them looking for hope, just like she once did. The summit was held right on the island, in a beautiful open space surrounded by the ocean breeze and tall palm trees. Sewa stood in front of the crowd, dressed simply, but her presence was powerful. The same woman who was once left behind now stood as a leader, a teacher, a builder. Everyone listened closely as she spoke, not with loud words, but with truth that touched every heart in the room. Near the end of her speech, the crowd grew even quieter. She smiled and looked out at the sea, then turned back to the young faces in front of her. "You don't have to shout to be powerful," she said softly. "Some of us rise in silence, and when we arrive, the world whispers our name." There was a deep silence. Then applause filled the air. Not the loud kind, but the kind that comes from people who truly feel inspired. Some had tears in their eyes. Some just sat still, thinking about their own stories. As the camera slowly zoomed out, the island came into view. The waves kissed the shore gently, and right there, carved by wind and water into the sand, were her initials, S.T. Sewa Temi. Nature itself had honored her journey, without noise, without a fight, just quiet grace. This wasn't about revenge. It was never about showing off. It was about rising after being broken. It was about choosing peace when pain could have turned her bitter. Sewa didn't just survive, she transformed. And as the sun set behind her, lighting the sky with gold, the world didn't just clap for her, it whispered her name. This isn't about revenge. It's about evolution. Where the heroine grows so much, the betrayal looks like a necessary ingredient for her glow-up. Fresh, empowering, cinematic, and unforgettable. Please share, like, subscribe for more African tales.